chug some beers and make some bad gambling picks. Welcome to ChuggieBets.
It's always in the morning, and you kind of forget it's on. But do you prefer the British Open when it's over at 10 a.m. or this last year when the U.S. Open was done at 10 p.m.?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the well, so you have to look at it from like a day of like a weekday, Thursday, Friday thing versus a weekend, Saturday, Sunday thing, because I think the U.S. Open having like late rounds that Thursday, Friday night, like that's fun. That's something to watch at night, keeps you entertained, especially the timing of it being like kind of a dead spot in the sports calendar. But I think I prefer like having the tournament finish early on the weekend for the British Open. So it's kind of, I like half of the tournament on 2 days and the other half on the other 2 days.
I'm the exact opposite from you, I think, Al. I like that it's on early Thursday and Friday because I'm at work. It's up on the TV. I can kind of like halfway pay attention while I work. Then on the weekends, I'm spending all morning doing chores. I'm cutting the lawn. I'm running errands. It's 3:00 in the afternoon. I'm go to sit down and watch it. And the British Open was over. I didn't watch any of it this weekend because it was all over by the time I sat down to watch anything.
I also don't think it helped that Harman was running away with it from the onset, right? Like, I'm happy for Harman. I don't really even know who Harman is. I think his first name is Brian. Is it Bruce?
I believe that's correct.
Butch? It's something with a B. But him just running away with it and no one being close. It was like 8. They were talking about John Rahm being back in it down behind 8 strokes. It's like,
yeah, Rahm shot a 63 on Saturday to get within 6 strokes. And like that was it. Done.
There was a point on Sunday where Rory got within like 6, didn't he? Like Rory went low early in the day.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, I think having a 6-stroke lead going into your final round, especially when everyone's shooting like at or below par, pretty much means like I think he's pretty confident in saying like I can go out and shoot par and like not have to sweat. And that's basically like that was it. If it's 4 strokes, 2 bad holes and all of a sudden it's a close one, but like, yeah.
Do you think you would perform better as yourself as a golfer on a links course like those open courses where it's wide open, huge greens, but if you miss, you're penalized, or like the Masters where everything's narrow? It's not as wide at all, but it's a little more forgiving on the outskirts.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say the fewer obstacles between my ball and the hole, the better. So if that means there's no trees at all on the course, like I'm gonna take that. And like if I hit it in the sand, I'm gonna hit it in the sand at the Masters anyway. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, same links, man. Those courses that are like tree canyons along either side, like can't do it. Can't make it happen.
I would murder so many people standing around the tees too. Like I would try not to. I normally wouldn't. But now that I know they exist there, I would have to hit them. Not like intentionally, but it would happen. Because I'm not good. I'm not good.
Like legitimately, that's the most terrifying thought in the world is like lining up a drive and there being like 200 people flanking like the tee box for like several yards downfield. I'd be like, somebody's losing an eye.
When I was in college, my roommates and I went to the driving range and I set up like 6 balls in a row and I was just like rapid firing them. But by the time I got to the 6th one, I was like a little bit off balance. I hit it off the toe. It went straight ahead of like where I'm looking, not this way. Like it went this way. It hit a very nice Asian lady right in the back of the head. I felt so bad. I thought I killed her.
Did you sign a glove or anything for her?
I did.
Give her $20. Be like,
I told her to listen to ChuggieBets.
Send her a TikTok.
No, that reminds me though of a prompt I gave my buddies. Being in Jacksonville, the players, when that's here, I was, they have these, chalets set up where you're right on like the 17th tee box. We're watching these guys. That's the island green, right? So you're watching these guys hit their 9 irons or whatever, try and make it on the green. And I was like, what are the odds that you could just pipe one right onto the green and like just keep it dry? It doesn't have to necessarily be on the green, like fringe counts or like even a little like path to get on there. But like, what are the odds you're not putting that thing in the water? Or how many balls do you need to get on there? Like in that spot too. Like crowd is there. Like they're just like, hey, you put this on the green. I think I'd need at least half a dozen balls.
I think I would need at least 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Even 5 or 6, like in most scenarios, I'm putting one on the green. But like if my life is on the line, like I have to do it or I'm going to die. I want like 50.
Yeah, it's a stressful situation, right? All these people watching you. Oh,
50. I'd feel pretty comfortable.
I need a range bucket.
Tomorrow, but
one bucket, large bucket, please.
Yeah.
Well, hey, welcome to ChuggieBets, everybody. I've got Andy. I've got Al. Andy's got the pink flanny.
Ooh.
Drink some beers.
Yes, he does.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Matt, is that a Busch Light Summer Shandy?
No, it's the Support the Farms edition for the farmers. It looks like a corn cob, which is perfect for today's conversation because we're going.
They should try that. They should try that in a small town.
I should have saved this for the SEC, I guess, huh?
Yeah, the yacht club. You should have saved that comment for the SEC. We can talk about Jason Aldean that week. But no, I'm really excited. We're going to talk Big Ten football. Andy's going to be the resident expert here. And by the resident expert, I mean the person who's most passionate about the Big Ten. So he can add a lot more context while Al and I probably crap on the Big Ten. I don't mean to, but we're probably going to crap on the Big Ten.
That's all right. We deserve it.
I'm not known for glowing reviews around here.
No, you're not. So a couple things going on in the Big Ten in the future, past this year. 2024, there will be no more divisions. Everyone's kind of going away from the divisionless model. I know the ACC is abandoning it this year. Pac-12 abandoned it this year. The SEC is the only major of the Power Five that's going to stick with it. And I'm sure they'll probably abandon it as well. But the SEC is a whole different animal. Also, USC and UCLA are also joining the Big Ten next year because they fit in the footprint so well. It's just like a natural progression.
Yeah, leaders and legends, baby.
Manifest destiny, baby. Westward ho.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing screams a good matchup like a matchup between Los Angeles and Piscataway, New Jersey. Gets the old blood going.
You know, people say California is the biggest flyover state.
They always do say that. I heard them. So those are a couple cool things. Andy, any thoughts of the Big Ten expansion? Are you excited about it? Do you think it makes no sense?
Both, right? It absolutely makes no sense just from like a geographical standpoint or any of that. But at the same time, it's really nice that anytime they have these conversations, because the talking heads always like to talk about what's going to happen with college football, where the conference is going. Like the Big Ten is always one that they talk about, like they're going to be fine, they're going to survive, they got plenty of money, right? If I was in, a Pac-12, yeah, I didn't want to say it, but Pac-12, like it's a lot more nerve-wracking. Like where are they going to go? That said, there was an article in, I think it was The Athletic last week, that was like, if we throw out all the history and we just look at like the current teams and where they are, how would we redraw the conferences? And I'm like, oh, that's a good idea. So I'm reading it. I'm like, everything in here makes sense. And then I get to the Big Ten and I'm like, where the fuck is Illinois? And then they were in some new conference called the Big Nine with like Cincinnati. And I'm like, fuck this.
Yeah.
Just threw my phone.
You're like, I've earned my right to be in the Big
Ten. Original founding member, baby. You're getting rid of us.
You got AA seed.
You're with UConn.
Yeah.
UConn conference.
The big Midwest.
Although we could probably go undefeated if we were playing UConn and UMass and New Mexico.
Hell yeah, that's a hell of a conference.
Honestly, it would be really smart to put all the shitty teams together in a conference. Like that would be good football. Like in the sense that like watching a car accident is entertaining. I
think that's called relegation now.
Yeah, they should do that.
The relegation model.
Yeah.
So last week we talked about the Pac-12 being a team of teams with over 8 wins and teams under 5 wins. We are going to talk in a very different light today because the Big Ten has a couple teams that are top loaded, has a couple teams that are bottom loaded, but the meat is between 5.5 and 7.5. There's a good portion of teams, which makes it very tricky to bet.
I hear that a lot. The meat is
5.5
between
to 7.5?
7.5.
Yeah, that's
A lot of
huge.
people say it's pretty average.
No, I think I'm the Rutgers of the group then. So we're going to talk some Big Ten football. It's going to be a little bit free form, but we're going to figure this out as we go on. You guys want to start East or West?
Well, I was thinking, like, let's talk who's winning the Big Ten, right? Like, it's for sure going to be Michigan or Ohio State, right? Every year it comes down to who wins that game is going to win the conference, right?
Yeah.
So do you have anyone else on that radar that you think has a better than a snowball's chance in hell of winning the conference?
Penn State.
Yeah.
They're usually right there. It usually comes down to their game with Ohio State if they can win that one. And then Michigan beats Ohio State, or Ohio State beats Michigan. Yeah, Ohio State beats Michigan. But yeah, you're right. Those are the two.
Do you think anyone in the West has the power to do it? I mean, my problem with the West this year is you got Luke Fickell running Wisconsin. Maybe he's great, maybe he's not. Maybe we have no friggin' idea how to handicap a new Wisconsin coach.
Yeah.
Then we have Iowa, and I don't know what the fuck to do with Iowa anymore, right? Next, by week 0, I will have a whiteboard that has Brian Ferentz's point total in order to get a bonus, and I will show it at the beginning of every episode to make sure we all remember that he needs to get 300 points, and defense is included. And I want to make sure we don't let Danny get away with his bad take last week that the offense was by design bad in order to set up the defense to score points. That was an atrocious take last week, and we didn't punish him enough for that.
Yeah, I was saying he channeled his inner Brian Ferentz on that one. That was for sure what Brian Ferentz's defense was, but it doesn't. Danny had no place making that argument.
I think we punished him plenty. We kicked him out of the country.
Yeah, he's out of here. He's in Hungary now, and that's what
I think if this is punishment, he'll take it every week.
That's true.
But I will say, to answer your question about the West and who's I'm not going to say anyone in the West is going to contend for the conference, but I do think Iowa. If I were to pick between Wisconsin and Iowa, I think I would go with Iowa to top that division because I just think solid defense always, offense. They can possess the ball. And at least now, there's a target on Ferentz's back, right? So they're shooting for, 25 points a game?
300 points in 12, and has to hit a bowl.
So we'll see.
They also have the best quarterback they've had in a long time.
Yeah,
they got
McNamara,
Cade McNamara transferring he was almost the starter at Michigan last year.
Yeah.
I don't think they've had a quarterback of that caliber for a while. So if Brian Ferentz can get out of his own way and let Caden McNamara play, they could definitely be dangerous because their defense was incredible last year, right? You have even a mediocre offense and you're winning the West.
Yeah, and I mean they've lost a couple guys, but they always have a good defense, so they should be able to reload. And with Wisconsin, I think some of you guys hate on Fickell harder than I do. I think he's good, but I don't know if he's in a position to get Wisconsin where they're projected to be this year. 8.5 wins sounds like a lot for him in year 2 at Wisconsin?
We're year 1.
Year 1.
Year 1, okay.
That's the big thing. I do think he's a great coach, and I think he could be awesome there. And he's a Midwest guy, Ohio guy. So I think he'll be fine with the recruiting aspect in the long term, even though Wisconsin's a notoriously hard place to get good recruits. But it's going to be a huge learning curve. Look, he was great at Cincinnati. This ain't the AAC anymore, right? Yeah. This is the money two. This is one of the, as they're calling these two conferences now, the money two between SEC and Big Ten. This is big money. Money's being reinvested going forward. It's going to be a problem. Yes, I hate saying the money two, but I'm not wrong. That's the term that's being used now, and it's awful. To your Penn State point, Andy, a lot of pressure is being thrown on Drew Allar's shoulders, right? I've heard a lot about this dude being amazing. I haven't watched.
That's their quarterback.
Yeah, right. And we lost ChuggieBets' favorite quarterback last year. He went to the pros. What was his name? The guy with the overs?
Sean Clifford.
Yeah, had to get the covered.
Yeah.
Had to get
the covers. All right, R.I.P. We're gonna miss that. That's the greatest soundbite of the year last year. I know the defense is really good, right? Probably second best in the East behind Michigan. They may be as competitive as Michigan on the defensive side, but it seems like a lot of pressure to put on a rookie or a new starter, in my opinion.
So to me, it's very similar to what happened at Clemson last year, where DJ was awful and the fans were all like rooting for him to get benched, but the coach just wouldn't do it. It was the exact same thing with Sean Clifford. He was not very good in some of those games, and the fans were just begging for, what's his name?
Drew
Allar, yeah, thank you. And so it comes down to, why was the coach not putting him in? Was it loyalty to Clifford, or was it because Allar is not as good as the fans think? And to me, that question is going to decide everything. If it was just loyalty to Clifford and Allar is amazing, they're going to be great. But if it was the coach seeing something that like he's not ready or he's not that good, then it's going to be tough. So
I mean, there's a lot of time between November, December, and where we are today. So
it's all the spring games, all the 2-a-days. Yeah.
Do
they do 2-a-days anymore?
I don't think so. So it looks
except at Northwestern. Sorry.
I try to think of a joke. I got nothing. So Penn State does start off with West Virginia, who I've been on record last week saying Neil Brown is getting fired. You can tell that everywhere. Put it in your books. If there's a bet, Neil Brown's getting fired. Then they play Delaware, and then they play Illinois away on the third game. Now, we can go back into the West a little bit more. And I don't know about Illinois this year as much as last year, but I know that's going to be a much tougher defensive slate than the first two games. I'm going to assume Bielema knows how to coach defense, because Bielema always knows how to coach defense. So that'll be a big, big game early in the season for them, especially for that 9.5 point total. They go Illinois, and then they get Iowa at home. That's a big, big jump in the competition. And those are two tougher defenses that Allar is going to be thrown right into. Now, those first two games could do a lot of good work, iron out the wrinkles, but it seems like a lot. I'm a little nervous.
This looks like there's way more than 2 losses on the schedule.
I can see it too, right? They got Ohio State and Michigan, right?
Yeah, that's 2 losses.
In a best case scenario, they win the they win the Michigan game because it's at home, and lose the Ohio State game. I can see 2 other losses on this, right?
Like that. I mean, I'm going to chalk both of those up as losses, which means they need to run the table on the rest of their games, and they still have to play Iowa, Michigan State, Maryland, and Illinois. Like, maybe they win all of those games, but I would bet against that happening.
They have to go 5-0 in September. I think if they go 5-0 in September, I think they can get through the rest of the schedule. UMass is fucking UMass. And then Northwestern is going to be historically bad. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Ohio State's going to be a loss. Indiana's really bad. Maryland's tricky. Maryland's going to be a trickier game. Loxley is a good coach. You're going to lose at Michigan. I'm not worried about Rutgers or Michigan State. So if you go 5-0 in September, I think they cover that number. But will they go 5-0 in September?
Yeah, I think I'm firmly on Penn State under 9.5. Yeah.
I feel good about that too. That would be kind of my lean on that side. Before we go to
plus money too.
On under?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
I wonder what the 10 would be at as far as like a safe bet. Probably minus 120, minus 125. If you're going to lock up your money, you're probably going to get that, at least get that money back. So Ohio State, Michigan, I don't know if we have any leans on who you think will be the winner of the East, right? Essentially, it'll come down to those two. They're both at 10.5. Those numbers seem right. Like, I can't argue. I would probably bet over on either one of those, assuming that one of them will lose to each other.
Yeah, but they play last game of the year, so both those bets could hit before they even play.
Yeah, exactly. And they did last year, right? I think they were both at 10.5 last year. And Illinois gave Michigan everything it had to get a win there, and Michigan had to squeak out that second to last game of the year, the penultimate game. But I don't know. Michigan's on a heater right now against Ohio State. They've kind of had their number the past couple years. Harbaugh's made the game real messy and out defended them. I don't know about the Ohio State offense. I know they have two great quarterbacks, but I probably would lean Michigan again here.
That Ohio State has two great quarterbacks?
They do. They have two quarterbacks they feel good in. And I trust Ryan Day's ability to get quarterbacks because the skill talent is bananas.
Yeah, so that was going to be my question is who's playing quarterback for Ohio State? Because I have no idea.
So I looked this up before we started, and what I was reading was saying Kyle McCord is probably going to be their starter. But who knows?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more of the faith in Ryan Day. Ryan Day has never really had a lot of trouble on the offensive side. And I think they're going to probably be pretty good defensively, but they're not going to be as good as Michigan on defense. Michigan has got the premier – them and Iowa have probably the premier defense in the Big Ten. Penn State closely behind it. So it's really going to come down to how good is that offense under Ryan Day. And if Michigan's kind of doing the same thing, rolling the team out there, I'd probably feel more comfortable in Michigan winning it all.
Yeah, I don't think I feel like I don't have I don't feel comfortable on playing the total on either of these teams. I feel like if I had to pick, I'd probably take the over for both, but I don't know. It's too many question marks to be confident in doing so.
You want to roll down the rest of the East? Thanks to these numbers are coming from BetMGM. So after the top three, which is Michigan 10.5, Ohio State 10.5, Penn State 9.5, you have Maryland at 7.5. You have Michigan State at 5.5, Indiana at 3.5, and Rutgers at 3.5. I don't know. We can talk Indiana really quick. Tom Allen has been there for 5 seasons. His first season, well, one of the original seasons, he had Michael Penix. Michael Penix was great with Indiana. Michael Penix left and is now in Washington, where he's getting Heisman consideration. Since Michael Penix has left, Indiana's been absolute dog shit. They have a heavy potential considering the 3.5. This will be their 4th straight year without a bowl. That's going to be a problem. Looking at the 3.5 number and looking at the games, let me pull up the games they play this year.
I think I might go under on Indiana 3.5.
I'm kind of thinking that's the play. Under 4 is -140 according to CBS. I don't know the MGM number right now.
I looked it up at 2 of my books right before we started, and under 3.5 is at plus money.
It's probably worth rolling the dice there. So,
I mean, legitimately, I think the only for sure win on their schedule is Indiana State. I mean, they play bad teams too. They play Louisville, they play Akron, they play Michigan State if you think they're bad, and Purdue. But I don't think they're going to be better than any of those teams.
I don't think so either. I don't think they'll beat Louisville. I think Louisville. I'll say this for the ACC pod, but I'd take the over on Louisville on the team total this year. I'm going to be bullish on Louisville this year.
Brome is back, right?
I think they beat Indiana State and Akron, and I don't think they beat Louisville. Will they win 1.5 games in the Big Ten? And I don't even think that's good enough for him to keep his job. I don't. I think he has to get 5 or to a bowl in order to keep his job because there's too much money coming into the Big Ten. It's the money too, right? And that's not I'm going to say that a lot, but it's going to be expected to have $8.5 million invested in a coach. When you have $8.5 million invested in a coach, you can get some good ass coaches from the ACC, the Big 12, the Pac-12, who want life-changing money. They'll get 10 years, $85 million contracts because it's not that much money to the Big Ten as it is in the ACC. It's a lot more money there. So you can do a better job of recruiting. If that's the case and you see that this guy isn't the right guy to hitch your wagon to, you're going to cut bait, I think. And I think you're going to see it pretty quick with Indiana this year, especially if they lose to a Rutgers.
So question then, do we have to consider a new coach boost at some point? If, say, they lose to Akron, are we going to see a coach come in to take over a 1-win Indiana team with half the season to play and see them pull off some dubs? I mean, that's a pretty pretty rough slate. They have to really do it in the last week of the season, but they could, in theory, beat Rutgers and Michigan State and Purdue. Maybe, I don't know.
I don't think you'll see a coach come in the middle of the season. Likely, you'll see some sort of caretaker situation. But I mean, I'm with you, Al. This looks like a very low under, and I would probably I'd play the under here.
Yeah.
Low unders.
Low. Oh no, nothing gets my blood going. I'd rather lock my money up in the books, realizing that I need people to lose every game, like in Indiana.
Hating ass bank account.
Hate. But they start off their year with Ohio State, so have fun. That's a fun game to get started.
The real demoralizer.
Start you off. And with Purdue, Michigan State, Indiana will probably be the determinant on how that over-under goes, and that's the second to last game. They do have Rutgers, which at home, if you're going to hit a total, that's going to be an important one. You'd rather play your hard games on the road and try to get your coin flips at home. I'll tell you that looks like a tough sled for Indiana.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything to add on Maryland, Michigan State, Indiana, or Rutgers?
Maryland, I think, feels like what 7.5 is the number, right? So I don't know. That feels like they're probably going to land right at 7. I haven't even looked at the schedule, but that just feels like where Maryland always finishes. Towson, Charlotte, Virginia, Michigan State, Indiana. They could start 5-0, and then only win yeah. I'm not going to touch Maryland. I would, yeah. That's a really good line, I guess, is what I'm saying.
It feels good to me too. Atualia's back, I think. Right,
Yep.
He still has another year of eligibility. Dude's good. They may not have Rackham Jarrett, or there's ridiculous wide receivers they're rolling out there, like these 5 stars. Like, why the fuck are you at Maryland and not at Alabama anymore? But yeah, that seems like a good line. I don't want to play it at all. Andy, anything's jumping out to you as far as these totals? Anything you like? You like over and Rutgers?
No, no. I think that's a pretty good line. I kind of like the Maryland over, but
Okay.
not enough to play it. It's juiced to the over. So I like Tulia. He's one of the most experienced quarterbacks in the Big Ten. Right, a lot of these guys are new or just transferred in.
He might be the most.
As far as in the Big Ten, I think he is. Yeah. But there are some guys that transferred in after playing a couple of years.
Right.
But yeah, I like him a lot, and they can put up points, and it's kind of fun. So not going to bet it when it's juiced, but I kind of lean to the over there.
All right. I know people are really high is relative. They're feeling good about what Greg Schiano's doing on Rutgers. I'm not going to buy it. I'm going to just watch it.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on that. Michigan State kind of feels like an under as well to me. I don't think this is going to be a particularly good Michigan State team. I think we talked about this already. Defense is going to be bad. They don't have a running game. They don't have a passing game. I think Mel Tucker is on thin ice. Like I said, it's going to be incredibly competitive in these lower contract eras to cash out these bad contracts because you have more money coming in the TV contracts in the future. So if you want to go invest $8-9 million on a better coach, you can do that. So I think it's going to be targets on backs.
So I feel like Michigan State is probably going to finish with 5 wins, like that. So I don't disagree with your play there. It's just going to be too close to that 5.5 line to where, one game swings that one. And for like a future bet like this, it's not something I would only really bet this if I felt really confident in the number. As far as Rutgers goes, so Rutgers win total is 3.5. They host Northwestern, Temple, and Wagner.
Win,
That's
win, win.
that's great. So your question
Sorry.
is,
You're right, bud.
so your question is, are they going to win any one of the following games? And that being hosting Virginia Tech, at Wisconsin, hosting Michigan State, at Indiana, or hosting Maryland. Like that's a lot of opportunity to get one win.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe color me Shiano'd.
I don't think the Virginia Tech line is going to be particularly bad. I think that's a bad Virginia Tech team. We can cover that in the ACC podcast coming up, but the ACC has some fucking bad teams this year. There's 3 of probably the worst 7 in Power 5 coming out of that conference this year. And Virginia Tech may be one of them. They don't have enough money to go get a good coach. Nothing against Brett Pry. I'm sure he's going to be great, but I don't have high hopes for that team at all.
Yeah. I think I would take Rutgers over 3.5.
I like that.
I probably would lean that way. So collectively, we don't know what to do with Ohio State and Michigan. Al and I are leaning under on Penn State. Andy's playing with the idea of over in Maryland. I think I'm going to go under Michigan State. Al and I feel good about going under 3.5 on Indiana, and we're all playing with the idea of over 3.5 on Rutgers. Does that sum it up? Well, and by the way, all our fellow listener out there, I'm sure we'll have a podcast where we play our favorites coming up here. So just make sure you keep listening. We'll summarize this up, and then we'll get in group of 5 stuff because that's the fun stuff anyways. I want to bet Colorado State overs and stuff. That's where the going is good. All right, let's talk Big Ten West, boys. What do you think?
Yeah.
All right. So in the Big Ten West, we've got Wisconsin at 8.5. We got Iowa at 7.5. We've got Minnesota at 6.5, Nebraska at 6.5, Northwestern at 3.5. Did I miss someone? Illinois at 6.5. I'm sorry. Illinois at 6.5. So a lot of teams, there's a shit ton of teams that are bowl eligible, but barely, according to the totals here. Let's talk about the newcomers here. We got Wisconsin. We did talk about, what's his name?
Luke Fickell.
Luke Fickell coming in there. We have Matt Rhule coming into Nebraska. And then Northwestern has a new coach. I don't remember who it is, but I think he's an assistant head coach taking over.
David Braun.
David?
Yeah, it's definitely not the old one.
No, it's not.
Did he get in trouble for something? Is that?
You know,
I don't know.
He almost did. Then he didn't. Then he definitely did.
Then he definitely does.
Get it out.
You want to start with Northwestern? That team's going to be fucking bad. I think they were going to be bad either way. Here's a fun fact for you. Do you know how long it's been since Northwestern has won a football game on the United States soil?
So I know last year they won one game. It was the first game of the season, and it was not in the United States. It was
not
in
in
Ireland.
Oh.
And I wouldn't say they won that game as much as Nebraska handed it to them.
They sure did.
Prior to that,
So
I'm
we're
not sure
in
when they
July.
Correct.
That's already 7 months plus going back another 3 or 4.
It was literally the first. It was like week 0.0, so it was like August.
A year and a half. What's that
Pretty
like?
close. It's been,
I bet it's closer to 2 years.
It's like
21
November.
months, roughly 21 months. The last time Northwestern won a game that was played in the United States was October 16, 2021. That was 646 days ago. And Northwestern fans, I wouldn't get too excited about breaking that streak anytime soon. The total's at 3.5. Let me pull up the Northwestern schedule really quick.
October of 2021.
Yep.
Fuck.
COVID was really still very fearful. He really changed our perspective of
Like
the
there
world.
wasn't even like a vaccine yet. Like, was there? Shit.
I think there was. but-
Yeah.
Oh, good
So
Lord.
Northwestern has Rutgers away the first game of the year. That's probably a loss. They get UTEP. UTEP is bad, right? I think that game is going to
I'm not even sure they win that one.
I'm not sure if they do. They get Duke. They play Duke away. Duke's returning their quarterback. I feel pretty good about Duke in that one. Minnesota's probably better than them. Penn State's better than them. They get Howard. Should be a win. They play at Nebraska, at Maryland, Iowa. They host a lot of teams at home. Away at Wisconsin, Purdue at home, and then go to Illinois. I don't see 3.5 wins there. Like, I know we're just hating ass unders, but I don't see it, right? Like, best case scenario, they get UTEP, they get Howard, right? So we need 1.5 conference game. I don't think they'll win at Duke. I think Duke may be overvalued from last year, but I don't think they're as bad. I still don't think they'll be as bad to lose that game. I bet you it's like a 9-point, 10-point spread at the worst in that game at Duke. Do you see another win? Like, Rutgers would be your best choice?
I'll put it this way. I wouldn't feel bad about losing a bet if I bet under 3.5 on Northwestern and they somehow figure out how to win 2 more games. I wouldn't be mad at it. I'm going to bet under 3.5.
Yeah, you can get under 3, like without extra juice, but under 3.5 is pretty juiced.
Okay, so it's got to be.
What are we talking? What are we talking on juice?
Under 3.5 is minus 200.
Oh
yeah, not doing that.
Under 3 is minus 115. So we are not
it's
the
still
only
a bad
ones
bet.
thinking this.
It's still a bad bet.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, my first thought was, okay, what's 2.5? Like, do they have under 2.5? Because I still might like that bet.
I'm sure they do somewhere.
The good thing about that one too is you're gonna know early. Like, if they lose to Rutgers and UTEP out of the gate,
they lose
like,
to UTEP.
they're for sure not winning 2 games.
They have to beat UTEP. That second game of the year is going to be a big one. They can go to Piscataway and lose. They can't host UTEP and lose at home. Like, it's cannot happen.
So, okay, I guess it's not very exciting to say that I feel good about a minus 200 bet. That shouldn't be surprising. But yeah, even minus 3, I would do it. I don't see how you're gonna do anything but push worst case scenario on that.
Yeah, I love Northwestern being bad, by the way. Apart from the scandal, which I don't really want to talk about, like, if you're abusing freshmen, like, fuck you. And if you're a coach and you knew about it, you didn't do anything to stop it, like, fuck you too. That's all I want to talk about the scandal. Just purely from a football standpoint, I don't know how to feel about Pat Fitzgerald being gone, because he was like the best coach Northwestern's had ever. So from that perspective, it's like, yeah, get him out of here. Like, let's get somebody else in. Probably not going to be as good. But that said, Northwestern being the best they've ever been, still not very good. No. So, like, I don't know. I'm just very torn. I hope they're terrible. I hope they lose out.
They're going to be an interesting team to watch for the next couple years, because they're in an odd spot. I've been bringing up the money to statement a lot, right? These teams, you're going to see teams go back in. I don't know if you'll see Northwestern go back in. I think you're going to see a lot of these teams going forward. They just may be comfortable getting the paycheck and investing it, because they don't have a stadium with lights, right? They're a long way away from being a big-time player, because Northwestern's a very good academic school, and they don't care about football that much. And I don't know if they'll start caring about it. Like, this will be an interesting turning point with Fitzgerald leaving. Do the boosters want to support football enough in order to play football well enough to compete, right? Because it's going to take an $800 million investment to get a stadium. I know they've been talking about getting a stadium forever. I don't think this helps. I don't think the Fitzgerald situation is going to help that at all. Like, I think you may see the boosters tighten up their pocketbooks, and that may be a short-term thing. Football is contagious. Illinois, in the Chicago area, they love football, right? It happens. So you may see people go back in, but I'm curious about the long-term viability of Big Ten in the football comp, like, in confidence. It may be like the walkover as everyone else competes.
Yeah,
Chicago's an Illinois city, so it doesn't. Like,
the
University of Illinois, not like the state of Illinois. So that's why nobody cares about Northwestern, because they're all Illini fans.
Breaking
Yeah.
news, Andy, with the Chicago is an Illinois city. You are correct, sir.
What? No,
Uh,
I meant Evanston is like right there in
Oh,
Chicago.
yeah.
I was just gonna say, what was I gonna say? Oh, like somebody's got to finish at the bottom of the conference, and I think Northwestern is happy to collect a paycheck and be that.
Exactly. I think they're
So-
gonna fill that role. They're gonna be focused on lacrosse and more of the sports that fit their academic requirements better. Let's put it that way.
Oh, you said lacrosse. I thought you said the cross, and I was like, we're talking about Northwestern, not Notre Dame, right?
No, not that.
Yeah.
Should we talk about one of the most annoying conversations in football? Let's do it. Is
Are they
Nebraska back? Is Nebraska back? We talked about last week. Is Texas back? Is that the worst of the backs? But Nebraska's up there because it's friggin' annoying, and they're never back. No one ever was like, "Wow, Nebraska's finally back." Like, I think Texas could be back this year. I think Florida State has a good chance to be back this year. I don't see a chance Nebraska being back anytime soon.
So Andy and I were talking about this a little bit before we started recording, and I was like, thank God Miami had that 2000-2001 run, because otherwise Nebraska and Miami are the same amount of being back. Like, it hasn't happened since the 80s. But then Andy pointed out that Nebraska did have that run with Eric Crouch in like the mid to late 90s. So there's something to it, but no, I don't want to hear that until they've had like consecutive winning seasons.
No, Miami's never been as far not back as Nebraska's been. It's always been Tennessee. Tennessee was the gold standard of are we back?
Yeah.
And they haven't been back. Last year, Heupel's going to ruin that because he's going to actually make them good, and it's not going to be as fun to talk shit on Tennessee. It's always been one of my favorite sports to do.
I love Josh Heupel football, although I've heard that he's actually like a huge prick, but he sure does make exciting football.
He does.
See, from my perspective, I hate "are they back" talk when it has nothing to do with the product we've seen on the field, right?
Exactly.
If we see a couple of wins that they roll off at the beginning of the season, like, then you can start to talk about, are they back? They won 4 games last year, and just because they got a new coach who is fresh off an absolute failure, by the way, and yeah, I know that was NFL and he's been good in college, but let's not talk about are they back until you show me something on the field. Maybe next year, if they blow this win total out of the water, they win 7-8 games. Absolutely, we can talk about them being back next year. But no, I'm not talking about them being back now just because they got an NFL reject coach.
Is Matt Rhule like a coattail rider?
He is. He's the king of failing up. He fails and he goes up. He's literally the king of failing up.
Because you were like, he's proven it at the college level, but I'm like, did he? He was like
Temple,
okay at Temple and like had one pretty okay year at Baylor, right? Isn't that pretty much it?
That's it.
That's like Al Golden.
He was better in college than he was in the pros. Can we say that?
Sure.
He was real bad.
Can we have this conversation? I don't think you're going to see NFL play college coaches going to the NFL as much anymore. I think it's a totally different game, and it's really talent acquisition in college football, right? We were talking about Pat Fitzgerald. Pat Fitzgerald's a special case because he did the most with players because he was under really strict restrictions on the players he get. But do you think you're going to see that as much? Because college coaches are going to get paid $10 million going forward. Like, in the money too, and the bigger conferences, even the like Florida State's going to still pay coaches $10 million. Miami's going to pay coaches $10 million. You're going to see these jobs. Oregon's still going to pay their coaches a ton. Is it worth going to the NFL? It seems too risky.
Yeah, I mean, I think Pete Carroll is like really like the only
real
positive example, and it's not such a linear, path that he had to college and NFL, like he was a college coach, like positional coach in the NFL, that he bounced back and forth a lot, whereas it wasn't like he just came up as a good recruiter and then all of a sudden like an NFL team was dumb enough to come calling. So I'm sure it'll happen again, but I don't see a situation like a specific coach that I would target at the college level for a pro gig.
I think you're right that it'll happen less because less people will do it for the money. I think there'll still be people who want to do it for the challenge. Like, I conquered this. Now let me go show that I'm the greatest of all time because I'm going to go conquer this other thing.
I think it's the recruiting part too. Like it's a grind. It's like
College
a
football is far
365,
harder than being an NFL coach as far as like the player acquisition. If you're good at it, Kirby Smart, Nick Saban. Nick Saban's a perfect example. Nick Saban was great at Michigan State, great at LSU, tried to conquer the next level. He's like, oh shit, this is a totally different world than when I can get all the best players. But to Alabama, he's a legend, probably the best college football coach of all time. I think the recruiting part, if you can master it enough and get a good enough system, I would never leave. If I have to go on the trail every day, I'm never going to be a college coach. That's awful. You don't get to go on vacation ever. The NFL, you have a couple months off. You're watching film. It's strict. You get fired a lot, but you get fired a lot in football in general, right? Like we're shitting on Tom Allen. Tom Allen's a coach at Indiana. Indiana's never really been good at football. Like when like Michael Penix, the 5 games he was there.
Plus, you know how like draining it's got to be to like be at Indiana and be like trying to sell your shit to like some kid who's super already, it's like cold calling someone to like sell them on your business, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, that sounds great, yeah, send me an email, and it's like, they are not ever going to consider you, and then the ones you have to actually settle for are like guys that you don't even want, but like you don't have anyone else in that position. Like it's got to be so draining and disheartening recruiting for like a average to below average program.
And the coaching is totally different, right? Like college, these coaches are more old school, right? They're like trying to raise these boys.
Yeah.
When you see that shit in the NFL, and it doesn't work, right? You just got to be the leader of men. You got to like steer the boat. Right, let the boat operate as the boat. All you do is steer the fucking boat.
The players are your peers in the NFL, and they're your subordinates in college, and that's a real shift that coaches struggle with too.
You can't go kicking kickers. Yeah, you can't go kicking kickers, right? Like that shit does not fucking work in the NFL. Like that's ridiculous.
Let me ask you guys like a kind of off the wall question. Do you think we'll ever see a point where a team, college or NFL, hires a head coach with like 0 football experience? They were like a CEO at Microsoft and they hire them and they're like, you're just going to be our CEO. You got to put the pieces together. You got to listen to the analytics, the data. We'll have coordinators that know football. You think anything like that ever happens?
I think you're describing the Dolphins.
I mean, sort of, but McDaniels like had lots of football experience. He was the OC in San Fran, right?
I mean, how many consecutive championships did he win on Madden?
How many vapes has he smoked on the sideline?
I love him though. He's fun.
He's the best. No, so Andy, that's an interesting point, right? Because you just need the human. And this is for the NFL, right? You just need to be able to relate to the players. The college, they already have CEO positions. Like they have a chief of staff now. All these, so like that job is being filled at a higher level, where your job is to control, make sure the psychologist is there if someone needs to talk to them, or make sure the NIL deals. In the NFL, I could see it working, right? If you just have the right person who can pull the strings, that can read the data quick enough, like a very malleable personality that has good leadership skills, I could see that actually working.
Yeah, I don't see a situation where any of the current NFL owners are going to be enlightened enough to decide to trust their billion-dollar franchise to someone with 0 experience coaching the sport, even if they are really good, really good camp counselor or whatever they are, So,
all right, what's more likely, what I suggested or an owner making themselves the head coach? Which one of those things happens?
Owner making themselves
owner is definitely
Jerry Jones.
Jerry Jones has been dying to be the head coach. I love it. Al and I went to the same exact thing. Jerry Jones.
It's the right answer. So.
Yeah. Is there any player that you think will end up owning an NFL franchise in our lifetimes?
It's so much money, dude. Like this is NFL teams are only getting more expensive, right? We just saw the most expensive commodity in sports get sold when it was the Commanders to Allen. I don't see anyone getting $6 billion. Like that's just ridiculous. And it's only going to go up, right? Smart money says it's only going to go up.
I mean, you look at like with these like player committees
The
that like
trust.
they pull their funds to get in on a percentage of a team. I don't know if anything like that's ever going to happen in the NFL, even in terms of like an acquisition group acquiring a team. It always seems to be some super rich singular asshole that does it. But
Well, Brady is part owner of the Raiders now, right? Didn't that
Yeah.
happen this offseason? So, like, minority owner, that's happened already. If we're talking majority
Yeah.
owner, I don't think it ever happens.
It's
Right?
just
Like,
not economically feasible,
yeah,
right?
even like LeBron can't afford
LeBron
to-
owns like a 1% stake in Liverpool and the Boston Red Sox. He owns like a lot, but it's like that's 1%. Yeah, like
1%.
Liverpool is like a $5-6 billion franchise. Also, he's never going to be able to like be the primary owner of that. You need to have like oil money or like Jacksonville, Shaq Khan, right? Has a lot of fucking money, right? He owns Fulham. He owns a lot of stuff. None of these guys will ever get there unless they figure out a way to reinvest their money in an exponential way.
like FTX.
Oh, that's a safe investment. Tom Brady told me.
But, it's a great way to double, triple, even quadruple your
safest.
earnings in a single year.
And it's unregulated. That's the best part.
Perfect. Those are my favorite.
Free money. It's a guarantee.
Talking about Nebraska really quick, right? So the total is, Andy, do you have updated numbers? I'm seeing 6.5 here.
I see some 6.5s.
Decent odds. So when we talk about this,
under 6.5 is pretty juiced. And over 6.5 is a plus money. The 6 is more even numbers.
6 is even.
Closer.
Nebraska starts at Minnesota. That's going to be a wildly interesting game. We're going to have the people.
They have a fun start.
Yeah,
to the
they
season.
do. They do. The first
at Minnesota and then at Colorado.
Oh God, is that the candidate for the dog shit game of the year? Nebraska, Colorado, right? Colorado is going to have so many people. They're like the Big 12 game of the. The Pac-12 game of the week. I just alluded to that they're going to the Big 12, which is going to happen.
I'm going to be watching that one.
You shouldn't. There's going to be so many better games. You should not watch that game. It's going to be so bad. I'd be curious. I bet you Nebraska is a 10-point favorite on the road. And I think that would be low. I would probably take Nebraska on that number.
So, you know what sucks is I just realized in looking at the schedule, because I got excited at Nebraska, Colorado, that it was the week after I'm going to be out of town for a wedding. And then that made me realize that the first weekend of college football, I'm going to be out of town on a wedding. But Danny will be there.
Wow, that's a friend I don't need in my life.
Yeah,
Getting
seriously.
married the first Saturday of college football.
Pretty shitty.
Yeah, but I think Miami plays Texas A&M that weekend. I would gladly watch that game. I am in. I'm in to watch that game.
Is it going to be a noon
I have
kick?
no idea. I just can't wait. It's going to be so animated. There's going to be so many characters on the field that don't wear uniforms. I can't wait to watch that. But that's different talk for different.
That's a 3:30 game. So Nebraska, Colorado is a lead-in.
It's
perfect.
A 10 a.m. kick in Colorado is perfect. Who doesn't like a 10 a.m. Colorado kick?
Hell yeah.
Northern Illinois will likely be a win. Louisiana Tech will likely be a win. Michigan is going to kill them. Illinois should probably win. Northwestern is going to lose. Purdue's interesting, but that's at home. Nebraska doesn't play well at home either, right? Like I used to think about Nebraska being like a formidable force. Like it's one of those games you go to Nebraska, you lose. I don't think that's at all the case anymore. And we were talking about the money. Nebraska has plenty of money, and they're going to spend a fuck ton of it to get better at football because they really care about football. They're the opposite of Northwestern. They're going to spend huge amounts of money of this new money coming in to be good. So they may get better as time goes on. And it's probably a good opportunity for Matt Rhule. It's one of those jobs you should take.
Do you think there's something in there about location? Being right outside of Chicago, you care less about football than being in the middle of a cornfield?
That's all you got in cornfield country.
I went to Illinois. I shouldn't be talking.
Yeah.
You never know when Red Grange might walk through that cornfield, and
he's not playing for Nebraska.
Take one to the house.
Hell no.
This feels like a 5-win Nebraska's schedule.
Yeah. I can identify a couple spots. I'll probably stay away from it. I don't think Nebraska has solved all their problems. I haven't looked at their transfer portal play. I know they didn't recruit particularly well, but with transfer portal and NIL, the recruiting doesn't matter anymore, right? It's a totally different calculation. So I got to look at those numbers. I'll probably stay away, but I hate the Nebraska's back conversation because they haven't been back in fucking decades. Andy, you have any thoughts, or you want us to pivot?
I like the under as well, but that could definitely be some bias. Not a Nebraska fan, so I like the under.
Yeah.
Anyone have any thoughts on Purdue or North? Well, we talked about Northwestern. Purdue is at 5.5. I don't have any thoughts. I think they have a new head coach. I like their head coach, Walters. I think he's a good coach, but his first time being a head coach. He's probably going to struggle. I would probably go under here, but I don't really have a hard lean on anything here.
Yeah, they stole him from us. He was our coordinator last year. So I don't know how to feel. Part of me, wants him to succeed because of that. And part of me is like, you left. Yeah. Screw you.
To kind of go to a rival. Is Purdue considered a rival? What are your primary rivals? Northwestern and Wisconsin? Iowa? Wisconsin?
Yeah, probably. But there's definitely a rivalry between us and Indiana, us and Purdue. Just because we're all kind of the same level of success generally, not very good, but fighting to not be the bottom.
One of the 8 to 10 teams that aren't Michigan or Ohio State on
exactly,
any given
and
season.
They're much closer to us than like Rutgers and Maryland. So.
Yeah.
Oh, can't wait till UCLA's.
Yeah, I don't have any thoughts on Purdue.
In the Legends division.
Illinois plays at USC in 2024. I think I'm going to try and go.
I think you should. In the Coliseum.
That'd be fun. Yeah.
I'm really curious about Minnesota. Look, I know people like PJ Fleck, and PJ Fleck's been pretty good there over a long, long period of time where he hasn't had the greatest players, but Ibrahim is good, right? He's always found good gems to make them competitive in a place it's really hard to get the good talent. Minnesota is super tough. If you're going to go to Minnesota, why not go to Wisconsin, right? Is kind of my thought process. Wisconsin actually has a track record of being good. Minnesota doesn't. I would probably lean the under here just because of all the changing parts in St. Paul or Minneapolis, wherever there are. But I'm curious to watch it. PJ Fleck is like a wild card. He'll win 10 games. He'll win 3 games. He is wild card bitches from It's Always Sunny. You never know what you're going to get from that Charlie.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the trap of the Big Ten, right? You've got 7 or 8 teams that are all within 2 games estimated win totals. So which team's going to do better? Which team's going to do worse? And where do they all slot in? So I think I agree. I think I would lean under here. It feels like a 4 or 5 win season more so than a 6 or 7. I don't know.
Under all day. I'm on the record last year. I'm not a PJ Fleck believer. He's Rob Corddry in a sweater vest, and do not believe in him. He's got the kind of shtick that I feel like. I know college is a little different because kids aren't there that long, right? Nobody's there more than 4 or 5 years. But the whole row the boat. I feel like that's the kind of shtick that gets old after a little while. You just kind of start tuning it out, and you're like, okay, coach, whatever you say, buddy. Yeah, under.
Yeah, I mean, just on its face, how can you respect a man named PJ?
PJ? I was talking about this earlier. I wish we would start bringing back the initial name. I was talking to a friend, and I was like, you should name your son Cornelius. And he's like, well, his middle name would be Anthony. I'm like, C.A., your last name would be great. That's a strong name. I wish PJ, though, I think it's lost on J in the middle name. I think you need to mix it up, right? Everyone's JJ or PJ, but if you're CA, that holds weight.
I like it.
Useless point. I'm sorry. I'll put it on. I think we're all kind of leaning Minnesota under. Row the boat and being that kind of guy. Is he like Big Ten Dabo?
Oh,
kind of a little edgier, a little less Jesus. But yeah.
I feel like Schiano
not
is
edgy in a dangerous way at all. Just like a little angrier.
Yeah.
I feel like Schiano is the Big Ten Dabo.
Oh, he is so different from like a spiritual perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
Keanu is soulless. He's a soulless monster. That's totally different. But
Yeah.
I get what you're saying there.
Just like, a self-righteous prick.
I'll
That's
give you
really
that.
what I was
Yes.
going for.
Yes.
Mhm. All right, let's talk about the three teams at the top of the Big Ten West. We got Wisconsin, we got Iowa, we got Illinois. We talked about Iowa at the beginning. Phil Parker is the best in the business, right? The Iowa defensive coordinator is awesome. He makes chicken salad out of worse than chicken shit all the time because he knows how to find players that will develop well for his system.
Plus, he took a bullet for his nephew Peter. That's stupid. I don't know why I said that. Cut it. Cut it.
No, it's got to stay in there.
Absolutely not.
It's not divisive enough to cut. I would probably lean Iowa over, but I hate it. I hate it because it's like the opposite of fun. He ruins my fun every week. I do think, to Andy's point, McNamara is the best quarterback Iowa's had in like a fucking decade. They probably should be better on offense, and I think you can get rid of all the players, and Iowa's still going to be good on defense.
Yeah, I hate it, but I kind of agree. They won 8 games last year. The total's at 8, and they have a pretty significant upgrade at quarterback. So
Yeah.
I
They're
don't.
sleepwalking. They're sleepwalking to 8 wins.
Yeah,
Like-
unless the
like, I
defense
might-
takes a big step back, but I don't see that happening.
I might do like an alt over at like 9.5. Like, what is
Wow.
that? Does anyone have that?
That's good juice. I mean, it's got to be
Oh.
pretty juicy. Let's talk Wisconsin. This is a team we kind of let it off at the top of the show, the top of the podcast, saying we don't know. I don't know what to do with Fickell's Wisconsin this year. It's a game probably stay away from. Every book has them listed really high, so I'm assuming the books know something that I don't. Graham Mertz is no longer in Wisconsin. I don't know who's running the offense anymore. Do you have any insight? Anyone have anything on Wisconsin?
Tanner Mordecai is what I was reading. Was the most likely starter, yeah.
It doesn't matter historically who the quarterback is at Wisconsin. As long as you can throw a play action pass 13 times a game, you're usually okay. I know Graham Mertz is in Florida now, right? So that's going to be a fun topic for another day. But I have no idea what to do with Wisconsin. I'm going to bring up their football schedule. I don't know who they get on the east side. Anyone have anything here as far as?
I don't have any thoughts on Wisconsin.
Okay, so they do play a really interesting game. They lost to Washington State at home last year. They are going to Washington State. I'll be curious to see how that game plays out. They play Buffalo early. Buffalo is one of the tougher teams in the MAC usually, so that'll be a fun game. But I think Wisconsin will roll. Washington State away is a really, really curious game because I think there will be some bad blood if Washington State.
Yeah, it's a tough place to go win, though.
I agree. Pullman's tough. It looks like it's a 7:30 game, so that's at least. I thought it was going to be like one of those games at 10:45, trying to wear out the team from 2 different time zones. They play Georgia Southern. That's fine. They get Purdue, Rutgers, Iowa, Illinois, Ohio State, Indiana, Northwestern, Nebraska, and Minnesota. So they avoid Michigan. They avoid Penn State. There's benefit to avoiding those for sure. What's the total at right now? 8.5?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and it's juiced to there's juice on the over, so people are betting the over.
I'd probably take the under then.
Same.
Just for the sake of the juice.
Same.
I can see them being 8-4, and I don't think there's any shame in Luke Fickell going 8-4 with a new team. I think that would be actually a great accomplishment. I think they're probably overvaluing. That's assuming they're going to lose at Washington State, lose 3 in conference. They got to play. They get Iowa at home. They go away at Illinois. They get Ohio State at home, which will be a very fun game. I'm sure that'll be some sort of primetime big matchup game.
You know what this feels like? The schedule feels like they're going to get out to a hot start and be like 4 or 5-1 or something, and then they're like Ohio State's going to demoralize them, and they're going to drop some games they shouldn't in the second half.
I would agree with you, but those games in the second half are not good. Indiana's not good. Northwestern's not good. Nebraska. I mean, I don't see Nebraska. I think Nebraska and Camp Randall. I'm sorry, Camp Randall would be a tough one. They could lose in Minnesota. I could see that. PJ Fleck rowing boats to get the 3 wins. All right. Yeah, it doesn't seem we're kind of leaning under. Is that the idea here? Just because I'll take the extra money.
I like the under a lot, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Then let's go. Let's hit the under. All right, Andy. I'm going to clear out one team we haven't talked about. Andy, Illinois looks like it's 6.5 is the number. I'm not in the betting site, but what you got?
It is. It's 6.5. I looked this number up today, and I saw this number, and I absolutely hated it. And you might think, oh, Andy's an Illinois fan. He thinks that number's too low. He wants it to be like 7 or 8. No, this number is too high. Illinois' sweet spot is when their win total is at 4, because then we can go out there and we can win 5 or 6 games. We can surprise some people, and everybody can call that a great season. Anytime Illinois has any expectations, and 6.5 is a huge expectation for Illinois. All right, that's bowling. All right, like that's bowling clear and easy. Whole extra win if we get to 7. So I absolutely hate it for that reason. I feel like that's the kind of thing Illinois will just shit the bed and win like 4 games. Now, that's just me being kind of emotional. From a more football perspective, we did lose like our 4 best players to the draft. The Brown twins and Witherspoon. Yeah, top 5 pick. And then a couple other defensive players. So, and we lost our defensive coordinator to Purdue. So I don't know what to think. I believe in Brett. I think he had a really good first year. So it's just going to depend if he hits that sophomore slump or can take another step forward.
I got a spicy take for you.
Go for it.
I think Illinois could start 0-4. I got an even spicier take. I think they could still cover the over.
I kind of do too. So looking at this schedule, Toledo, I think that's a win. That second game, that's the game you're going to watch, right? You could watch your dumb Nebraska, Colorado. That's a useless game. You could watch Illinois, Kansas. That's a really fun game, right? Because it's conflicting styles. Everyone loves Lance Leipold at Kansas versus Bielema. I think that's stylistically an interesting fight, right? Because it's like a heavyweight versus someone that's a little more mobile, a little more sexy. And Daniels will be back for Kansas. That's a fun game. Penn State, right? It's going to be a good Penn State team. FAU is going to be pretty good this year. I don't think Illinois should particularly struggle, but I could see if they set that to a 10-point spread, your boy's going to take the plus on that.
That's going to be a house divided game for us.
Yeah, not because I care about FAU. But
no, I mean for me and Amy. Amy's a burrowing owl.
An owl.
FAU's been hot lately, man. They've been hot. But you do avoid Ohio State and Michigan, right? That's a big, big benefit in your schedule, right? Avoiding those 2 teams is a huge, huge benefit. So you get Penn State, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Do you avoid Maryland or you play Maryland?
They play Maryland.
Play Maryland.
So you play the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and you play the middle teams. You get Northwestern. You don't get Rutgers.
We always end the season against Northwestern.
Yeah. I like the over, actually. I like it. I like the over on this one. If I had to guess, if I had to lean one way, I would probably go the over 6.5. Kansas is going to be a really important game. The week 2 schedule of college football this year is going to be awesome. Stylistically, it's a bunch of weird teams playing each other, and I'm going to be like glued to the screen. Week 1, there are only like 6 games with a single-digit spread between them. Week 2, there's going to be a lot of weird matchups. Illinois, Kansas is something that I'll be very intrigued by to watch.
Oh, you know what we should pick our week 1 like big upset, like money line favorite.
Oh, if you want to pull them up.
Yeah. No, not today. Let's pick them when they get closer, right? Yeah.
When we get to week 1, for sure, we'll cover that. Did we say we talked about who we like in the Big Ten West, right? Let's see. Any other topics on my old sheet to cover here? I think we've done pretty well. I think we covered the Big Ten. So pick your Big Ten winners, East and West.
Iowa. Wait, they're in the hard one,
West.
right?
They're in the West.
Yeah.
Okay, no,
The
then
easy one.
yeah, Iowa and let's go Michigan. Let's go Ohio State.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Just for the sake of being different, I'll go Iowa, Michigan. But I think Al's got it right.
I would go Iowa, Michigan as well. So not that exciting. We're going to be on Brian Ferentz watch either way. But God, I hope he only scores like 214 points. I am rooting so hard for the worst offense ever. They can still win 8 games. That does not change shit. Them not scoring. I hope they score under 200 points.
How many
And
points
they
did
still
they
get 8
score
points.
last year? Did we ever total it up?
I did not, but I do remember you guys were joking about the Illinois-Iowa game prior to and being like, "Oh, they're going to win by field goals." I believe it was 6-9. I believe we won 6-9.
That sounds
So,
absolutely right.
Yes.
Anyone else want to fire a coach? I've been firing coaches. I told Mel Tucker he's close. I think Tom Allen's fired. Anyone else? I don't see anyone in the East.
I'd love to fire PJ Fleck, but after getting 9 wins last year, he'd have to be pretty bad for that to happen. James Franklin just got a big extension.
Can we talk James Franklin? He's been there for 10 years now, right? From Vanderbilt, did great things at Vanderbilt, got to Penn State, and he has parlayed every opportunity to talk to every other school in order to keep getting contract raises from Penn State. He's done this annually with Florida State when we were like in between coaches. And he's like, oh, I just signed an extension. Sorry, right? Good luck. But he's been there for 10 years, and he's been fine. But has he been great? Like, he seems like he's like the definition of he's fine.
Yeah, shit. This will be his 10th year. God.
I just can't believe he's been there for 10 years, and I feel like he's done nothing of record.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, when you're in the same division with Ohio State and Michigan,
yeah,
like,
it's really tough.
Yeah,
it is. That's what I'm saying. Are my expectations too high for a guy who gets paid a fuck ton?
If you're not diddling kids or harboring someone who is, it's you're clearing it's pretty easy to clear that bar.
They set the bar very low. The last administration set the bar so low.
They're like, all we ask from you is to be third best in your division and don't
touch any kids.
Do you think that's good enough?
Don't cause any lawsuits.
Realistically, not the diddling part, but do you think they're like, keep finishing third best and we'll keep paying you, right? They do well recruiting. They have my favorite recruiter in the world, the guy that I want him back in the state of Florida so bad, Jawan Sider. He's an incredible recruiter, and he keeps getting people out of the state of Florida, and it's very annoying. Someone needs to drop a bag at his door. Get him the fuck out of Penn State. So they do well at that part, but they just never get across the line. And I mean, I don't see Penn State being that much worse of a job than Michigan, right? Where to the point where, like, I feel like you should overtake Michigan. I understand Ohio State has a lot of panache, but James Franklin seems like fine, but I would almost be interested in finding like a bigger candidate or someone to get you across the line at some point.
This dude has finessed his way to where he is, man. He was like a position coach for like 6 different schools for a single season each, and then was like wide receivers coach at Maryland for a few years, then bounced around for like another year at a few different gigs, and then he landed the Vanderbilt job and did 3 years at Vandy, and he's been at Penn State for a decade.
No, he's done very well.
I think it's one of those, like, who are you going to get that's better? You know, like, nobody wants to come lose to Ohio State and Michigan every year. I think if you're Penn State, you're happy to stay in a position where if Ohio State or Michigan ever has a down year, you can pounce, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's ideal. You got to be there waiting for your time. You can't try and say, oh, we want to be better than them all the time. Like, you're going to just keep chasing rainbows.
I don't see it as that, though. I don't think of Penn State as being that team that can't catch up, right? Like, if we're talking about Maryland should be happy with what Maryland does, right? And they're 7.5 wins. It's fucking awesome. I don't know. Maybe I'm romanticizing Penn State too much, right? And maybe I'm
I
thinking.
mean, I think historically you're right though, but I do think like in this past like 5 years, so like half the time Franklin's been there, Ohio State and Michigan have been juggernauts. Like you're not going. You might be able to topple one occasionally, but you're not going to top both of them. You're just not.
I wonder if that changes when divisions go away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to topple both of them anymore. You just
gotta
have
be
to.
like-
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think the math does change when there's a 12-team playoff too, right? Penn State can be 9-3 and probably be in a 12-team playoff if the 2 losses are to Ohio State and Michigan. And who knows what Harbaugh is going to do? Harbaugh does dumb shit all the time too. He's never consistent, right? Like he always keeps parlaying him. He's very much James Franklin, where he goes and talks to a couple NFL teams, flirts a little bit, gets a little more money, and then he sits down. So,
Yeah, stupid Harbaugh.
You're right. Maybe I'm being too myopic here because a 12-team playoff and divisionless football changes it. But you got USC coming, right? And they're not slowing down. They keep investing. Like
I wonder-
they went and got the best coach they could have gotten.
They're getting rid of divisions next year.
Correct.
We're gonna play one more year with division.
Yeah, so I wonder if that saves some guys' jobs this year, particularly in the East. If teams are less willing to, or I guess more willing to be patient with a guy that they might have fired under the status quo, but knowing they're going to be without divisions and their schedule might lighten up, they might say this guy is good enough to get us something.
I don't think it's going to get easier for the teams in the East. If anything, I've seen it looks like the West is like middle loaded, right? Everyone's like 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 wins. I feel like if you're going to be Rutgers or Indiana and you want to try to make a splash, you got to kind of go attack. Michigan State's like the weirdest position there because Michigan State, in my mind, is a good football team, right? On the field, they're a bad football team. Like something doesn't add up there, and I'm not blaming that all on Mel Tucker. There's a handful of situations that happen at that school, but kind of Mel Tucker's fault, right? It's under his tutelage or under his watching eye. So,
but I mean, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State are all in the East, right?
correct.
So, if you're one of the other teams in the East,
I get it. You don't have to face those 3 every year,
right? That was the thought. Although I doubt people are putting that much thought into it. They're just going to fire a guy if they don't like him.
Well, when does the money drop for a Big Ten? When does it get more? Do you know?
I don't know. I know it's already a lot now.
It is a lot now. I know it's going up.
Yeah.
Right. They got that good contract, so I'd be curious. I'd be curious to see if they add any other teams. I know that there's a team down right around where we live that would be very interested in joining the Big Ten and think they have the credentials. So they've been talking about. I hear so much Miami to the Big Ten. I'd be curious about the fit. It makes sense
Interesting.
to a certain degree, but
I mean, I'll take a Illinois game in Miami every couple of years.
that's what I'm saying. It's not that bad. And it really opens up the conversation. Like, what are we doing? Just get rid of these conferences, make like big ass leagues, and let's move on. I know you're in a position of power. You don't have to do shit as a Big Ten team, but like
yeah, that's how I feel most of the time. But I told you I read that article where they were talking. I mean, it was very, very theoretical, but like, I don't know if Illinois is ever not in the Big Ten, then it totally changes because we're not, Ohio State or Michigan or Penn State from a name recognition value. We just are kind of lucky that we get lumped in with them. So,
who do you think is more valuable though? Like, let's play this in the conferences. Illinois and the Big Ten or Boston College in the ACC. I would say Illinois is more valuable to the
sure.
Big Ten, right?
Sure.
The SEC, even Vanderbilt, I would say is more valuable than Boston College, but less valuable than Illinois and their.
I'd say it's probably closer historically, but like over the past like 10 or 15 years, it's like not debatable.
Agreed.
Like what happened to Boston College? They are like non-existent.
They
Doug
don't
Flutie graduated?
exist. They're like a ghost. They're like something. Matt Ryan was there. Zay Flowers got drafted this year. That team is going to be a special case. The ACC's got some bad teams this year, boy. You got to get your wins up. I got nothing else in the Big Ten. You guys got anything?
No, I think we hit it good.
Cannot wait for football.
Hell yeah. Next week, I think we'll either be talking about the SEC or the ACC. So make sure to follow us and join us next week. We're going to have a lot more in-depth coverage. I feel like we did an okay job. It wasn't the shittiest, right? You're going to hear shittier sports coverage out there. So good on us. To our listener out there, thank you for listening. And good night.
Good night, Tyler.
Night,
Good night,
night.
Joe.
Night, Matt.